My stepmother spent 4 years taking everything from me because I was a stain on her perfect family. I made her realize that she picked the wrong target. If you need something, you figure it out yourself. Don't come to me. Don't come to your father. My daughter Candy still needs us, but you're old enough to handle your own problems, my stepmother Selma said on her first night in my house. My mom's body was barely cold, and my dad had already remarried and moved this woman and her daughter into our home. Now his new wife was calling a family meeting and telling me I was on my own, which really just meant Candy gets everything and I get nothing. I looked at Selma sitting there like she belonged here, and I wanted to scream. We're both 14, I said. Selma's face changed into something soft and patient, like she was explaining something to a slow child. Honey, you've been through so much already. Losing your mother, grieving, and look at you. Handling it beautifully. Candy doesn't know the first thing about that kind of pain. You've proven that you're strong and independent. I stared at her in disbelief as she used my grief as the reason to abandon me, twisting her death into justification for why her daughter deserved more than me. I turned to my dad, waiting for him to say something, to shut this down, to be my father for 5 seconds. Dad, this isn't fair. You can't actually agree with this. He sighed, that sigh. The one he'd been doing ever since he met Selma, the one that meant I was being difficult. She's right, sweetheart. You've always been my strong girl. Candy chimed in with this tiny, helpless voice. I just don't know how to do things on my own like Bianca does. I wish I was as brave as her. My dad ate up her victim act. He looked at her with soft eyes and squeezed her hand. I wanted to fight and kick them out, but Dad had already chosen. If I pushed harder, I wouldn't just lose the argument. I'd lose him completely. So I backed down. But Selma doesn't know what my mom left me. And when I turn 18, they're going to find out exactly what that is, and they're not going to like it. I went to bed that night feeling like a stranger in my own house. I lay in my room staring at the lavender walls my mom and I painted together and tried to convince myself that things would get better. That my dad would wake up and realize what he was doing. That Selma would ease up once she settled in. That Candy would stop being so insufferable once she got comfortable. I was wrong about all of it. 2 weeks after that family meeting, I came home from school and heard voices coming from upstairs, laughing. I dropped my backpack by the door and followed the sound to my bedroom, where I found Candy standing in the middle of my room, holding a measuring tape while Selma pointed at different walls, talking about where to put a mirror and where the dance bar would go. All my stuff was in boxes in the hallway. My posters, my books, my bedding, the fairy lights my mom and I strung up together, everything just shoved into cardboard and tossed outside like garbage. What are you doing? I asked from the doorway. Selma turned around with this innocent smile. Oh good, you're home. We're getting Candy's room set up. She needs space for her dance equipment, and your room is the second biggest, so it just makes sense. She said it so casually, the same way she'd tell me dinner was ready, the same way she'd ask me to pass the salt. She wasn't standing in the middle of my mother's memory asking me to be okay with it. She was telling me it was already done. This is my room, I said. My voice came out shaky, and I hated myself for it. Your room is down the hall now. We already moved your things. You're all set up. No. Selma blinked. Excuse me? I said no. This is my room. My mom and I made it together. We painted these walls. We picked out everything. You can't just take it. Candy rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. Oh my God, it's just a room. Why are you being so dramatic? Shut up, Candy. Don't tell my daughter to shut up, Selma snapped. Then get her out of my room. It's not your room anymore. We've already discussed this with your father and he agreed. The move makes sense. You're being difficult for no reason. I pushed past her and stood in the middle of the room with my arms crossed. I'm not leaving. You want this room? You're going to have to drag me out. Selma's face went cold. Harold, can you come up here, please? A few minutes later, my dad appeared in the doorway looking tired. He saw me standing there, saw the boxes in the hallway, and I watched him do the math in his head. Stand up for his daughter or keep his new wife happy. He chose wrong. Bianca, come on, don't do this. Dad, they're taking my room. The room Mom and I made together. You were there when we painted it. You helped us hang the lights. How can you let them just take it? He sighed. Honey, it's just a room. Candy needs the space for her activities. You'll be fine in the smaller one. Just a room? Mom and I spent an entire weekend on these walls. She let me pick everything. The color, the curtains, all of it. This is the only place in the house that still feels like her. My voice cracked and I hated it. I didn't want to cry in front of them. Your mother wouldn't want you clinging to a room. She'd want you to move forward. Don't tell me what Mom would want. You don't get to do that. Selma stepped forward with that patient, condescending smile. Bianca, I understand this is emotional for you, but we're trying to build a family here. That means making adjustments. Candy needs this room. You're strong enough to handle the change. We all know that. There it was again. Strong, independent, mature. All the words they used to justify giving me nothing. I looked at my dad one more time, begging him with my eyes to be my father for just 5 seconds, to remember who I was before Selma, to choose me just once. He put his hand on my shoulder. Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you settled in the other room. It's not so bad. We can paint it whatever color you want. I shrugged his hand off. I don't want another room. I want mine. But he was already walking toward the door, already done with this conversation, already checking out the way he always did when things got hard. I grabbed as many boxes as I could carry and hauled them down the hall to the smaller bedroom. White walls, no memories, half the size. I dropped the boxes on the floor and slammed the door so hard the whole house shook. Then I sat on the bare mattress and cried until my chest hurt. I didn't unpack for 2 weeks. I lived out of boxes because unpacking felt the same as giving up, the same as admitting they'd won. Every night I'd lie there staring at blank walls and think about my mom. She'd let me stay home from school the day we painted my old room. She'd gotten lavender paint on her nose and didn't notice for an hour, and I refused to tell her because she looked so silly. I still remember her saying that room would always be my safe place. Now Candy was in there learning dance routines, and I was stuck in a room that felt more like a prison cell. A few days later, I decided to try a different approach. I waited until Selma took Candy shopping and found my dad alone in the living room watching TV. I sat down next to him the way I used to when I was little, when things were normal. Dad, can we talk? Just us? He muted the TV. Sure, honey. What's up? I know you're trying to make this work with Selma. I get it. You want to be happy again. But that room was all I had left of Mom. It was the one place in this house that still felt like her. And now it's gone, and I stopped because my throat was closing up. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, Bianca, it's been a year. At some point you have to let go. Your mother is gone. She's not coming back. Holding on to a room won't bring her back either. I stared at him. I know she's not coming back. I'm not stupid. Then why are you making this so hard? You're exhausting yourself. And honestly, you're exhausting everyone around you. The words hit the same way a slap would. I'm exhausting you? I'm sorry my grief is inconvenient for your new marriage. That's not what I said. That's exactly what you said. I stood up. You don't get to tell me when I'm done grieving. You don't get to decide when I stop missing her. And you definitely don't get to act like I'm the problem when you're the one who moved strangers into her house 8 months after she died. His jaw tightened. They're not strangers. They're family now. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for everyone. They're not my family. They never will be. I walked away before he could respond. That night, I lay in my tiny room and stared at the ceiling and accepted the truth. My dad wasn't going to take care of me. He'd already made his choice. If I wanted anything in this life, I was going to have to get it myself. I had realized that, but I didn't know the lengths I would have to go to actually get things myself, until a month later when I saw a flyer at school for soccer tryouts. I'd always been fast, and I figured it was worth a shot. The fee was $200. That night at dinner, I asked my dad if I could join. He glanced at Selma before answering, which told me everything I needed to know. Money's a little tight right now, honey. Maybe next semester. I nodded and didn't push it. I'd learned that pushing only made things worse. Then the next week, Candy came home with a new schedule printed on fancy paper. Dance on Mondays and Wednesdays. Cheer on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Private vocal lessons on Saturdays. I did the math in my head. That was at least $500 a month. Probably more with costumes and competitions and all the other stuff Selma was always buying her. I couldn't help myself. So we have money for 3 activities for her, but 0 for 1 activity for me? Selma set down her fork. Candy's activities are investments. She has real talent. Colleges look at this kind of thing. And I don't have talent? You've never even let me try anything. Don't take that tone with me. What tone? I'm asking a simple question. She gets $500 a month for activities and I can't get $200 for one? My dad jumped in with his peacekeeper voice. Bianca, that's enough. Selma's right. Candy's activities could lead to scholarships and opportunities. You're smart. You'll find other ways. Smart. There it was again. I was smart and strong and capable, so I didn't need anything. But Candy was delicate and sensitive and needed endless resources poured into her. I looked at my stepsister sitting there with a smug little smile on her face, and I wanted to flip the table. Instead, I excused myself and went to my room and made a decision. If they weren't going to give me anything, then I'd get it myself. I started asking around the neighborhood for odd jobs, babysitting for the couple down the street, walking dogs for the retired couple on the corner, mowing lawns, pulling weeds, whatever paid cash. I told everyone I was saving for college. Nobody questioned it. I hid the money in a box under a loose floorboard in my closet because I didn't trust anyone in that house. If Selma or Candy knew I had cash, they'd find a way to take it, or guilt me into spending it on family expenses. So I kept it secret, my own little safety net that nobody could touch. By the next soccer season, I had more than enough saved. I went to the athletics office and signed up. When they handed me the permission slip, I stared at the line where a parent was supposed to sign. I thought about asking my dad and immediately knew he'd say no. Selma would make sure of it. So I practiced his signature a few times on scrap paper and then wrote it on the form. It felt wrong, but also right. I was taking something back. I made the team. Not just made it, but started by the third game. I was fast and aggressive, and all that anger I'd been carrying around finally had somewhere to go. For a few months, I had something that was just mine. Something they couldn't take or ruin or give to Candy instead. I should have known it wouldn't last. Selma found out near the end of the season. I don't know how. Maybe she saw something in my bag or heard another parent mention it. She was waiting for me when I got home from practice one night, holding the permission slip I'd hidden in my desk. "You forged your father's signature." I didn't react, just stood there. "You've been sneaking around behind our backs for months, playing on some team without permission." "I got a fee waiver," I said. The lie came out smooth. "The school has a program for students who can't afford the registration. I just needed a signature, and I knew Dad would say no." It wasn't true, but it sounded true. Believable enough that Selma couldn't prove otherwise, but she didn't care about the money anyway. "You still forged his signature. You lied. You've been deceiving this entire family." "I wanted to play soccer. That's it." "Behind our backs, without permission. Harold, get in here." My dad came in and Selma showed him the signature. His face went dark. "You forged my name?" "You would have said no. You say no to everything I ask for. So you lie? You forge documents? This is who you are now?" "I got a fee waiver from school. I didn't take anything from anyone. I just wanted to play." "Don't try to justify this. You committed forgery. It's a permission slip for a high school soccer team, not a federal document. Don't get smart with me." He was angrier than I'd seen him in years. Angrier than he ever got at Selma or Candy. All that rage he'd been swallowing to keep his new wife happy was finally coming out, and of course it was directed at me. "You're grounded for a month. No phone, no TV, and you're quitting that team. The season's almost over. We're in the playoffs. I'm the starting forward." "Should have thought about that before you lied," Selma said smugly. I felt the injustice of it burning in my chest. "I didn't steal anything. I didn't ask you for money. I found a way to do it myself." "Isn't that what you wanted? Isn't that what you've been telling me since Selma moved in? Figure it out yourself, Bianca. You're strong, Bianca. You don't need us, Bianca." My dad's face twisted. "Why can't you just be easy? Just once? Candy's parents are divorced and you don't see her acting out like this. She's adjusting. She's trying. What's your excuse?" The comparison knocked the wind out of me. Candy, who'd never worked for anything in her life. Candy, who got everything handed to her on a silver platter. Candy, whose biggest hardship was her parents splitting up instead of one of them dying. That was his standard for good behavior. "My excuse," I said slowly, "is that I'm living in my dead mother's house watching strangers take everything she built. That's my excuse." Something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe. But then it hardened into something else. "I lost her too, Bianca. You're not the only one grieving. But I'm trying to build something new. I'm trying to be happy again. And you're standing in the way of that. Every single day you make it harder. He might as well have stabbed me. I'm standing in the way of your happiness." "That's not what I—" "No, that's exactly what you said. Your daughter is an obstacle to your happiness. Good to know." I walked past him and went to my room and didn't come out for the rest of the night. I could hear them downstairs talking about me. Selma's voice carrying up through the floor. "She needs professional help, Harold. This behavior isn't normal." And my dad, quiet, agreeable, spineless. "Maybe you're right. I'll look into it." After that, Selma started telling everyone I was troubled, difficult, acting out. She said it to my dad's family at holidays, said it to neighbors when they asked about the blended family, even said it to my teachers at parent conferences. "We're really struggling with Bianca. She's having a hard time adjusting." She was building a narrative where she was the patient stepmother trying her best, and I was the problem child making everyone's life difficult. And the worst part was people believed her. Meanwhile, Candy leaned into the contrast, started performing perfect daughter whenever anyone was watching. "Thank you so much, Mom. This dinner is amazing, Mom. I love you, Mom." She'd hug my dad for no reason and call him the best stepdad ever, and look at me while she did it with this little smirk that said, "I'm winning." I saw the game clearly now. Candy wasn't just benefiting from favoritism. She was actively playing to keep it going. Every sweet comment and grateful smile was calculated to make her look good and make me look worse. Things stayed bad for a while, and then they got worse. I came downstairs one Saturday morning and found Candy in the kitchen eating cereal and wearing my mother's necklace. It had a small diamond pendant, and was the one my mom wore every single day for as long as I could remember. I stopped in the doorway. Candy looked up and smiled. Morning. I couldn't speak. I was staring at my mother's necklace resting against my stepsister's collarbones as if it belonged there. Where did you get that? I asked. My voice sounded strange, far away. This? Your mom's jewelry box. Mom said I could borrow whatever I wanted. She said it so casually, the same way she'd talk about borrowing a sweater, not wearing the most precious thing my mother ever owned. I moved before I could think. Crossed the kitchen in 3 steps, grabbed the necklace and ripped it off her neck. The clasp broke and Candy screamed as if I'd stabbed her. What the hell, you psycho? I was shaking, holding the broken necklace in my fist and shaking so hard I could barely stand. This is my mother's. My dead mother's. She wore this every day of her life. It was just sitting in a box. Mom said, Selma had no right. This isn't hers to give away. Selma came running in from the living room. What is going on? She saw Candy rubbing her neck and me holding the necklace, and her face went hard. Bianca, what did you do? What did I do? Your daughter is wearing my mother's jewelry. You told her she could just take whatever she wanted from my mom's things? Everything in this house belongs to the family now. Your mother isn't here anymore, and those things were just sitting there collecting dust. Collecting dust? Collecting dust? I was screaming now. I couldn't stop. She's been dead for a year, and you're already pawning off her jewelry to your daughter like it's nothing? I didn't pawn anything. Candy borrowed a necklace. You're being hysterical. I'm being hysterical because you're erasing her. Every day you erase a little more of her from this house. First my room, now her jewelry. What's next? You gonna throw out her photos? Donate her clothes? Selma's voice went ice cold. Your mother is gone. Holding on to her things won't bring her back. The sooner you accept that, the healthier you'll be. I slapped her. I didn't plan it. My hand just moved on its own, connecting with her cheek so hard that the sound echoed through the kitchen. Selma's head snapped to the side, and when she looked back at me, there was a red mark blooming on her face and pure hatred in her eyes. Candy was screaming again. Dad! Dad! My father came running in and saw Selma holding her cheek and me standing there with my mother's broken necklace in my hand, and immediately grabbed me by the shoulders. What the hell is wrong with you? I was crying now. Couldn't stop that either. She's erasing her. She's erasing Mom, and you're letting her. You're letting them take everything. You hit her, Bianca. You hit my wife. She gave away Mom's necklace, the one she wore every day. She just gave it to Candy as if it was nothing. My dad looked at Selma's cheek, at Candy's tears, at the necklace in my hand. I waited for him to understand, to see what they'd done, to be angry on my behalf for once. Instead, he said, Your mother would be so ashamed of you right now. She raised you better than this. She'd be disgusted watching you act this way over a piece of jewelry. The words hit me somewhere deep, somewhere that had already been broken so many times I didn't think it could break anymore. Don't, I whispered. Don't use her against me. This is why it's so hard, Bianca. Every time I think we're making progress as a family, you do something like this. He let go of my shoulders and stepped back as if he couldn't stand to touch me. You make it impossible to move forward. You make it impossible to love you. I stood there with those words ringing in my ears. You make it impossible to love you. My own father. The man who used to carry me on his shoulders and call me his little princess. He'd just told me I was unlovable. Go to your room, he said. Don't come out until I tell you. I walked upstairs in a daze and sat on my bed in the small room with the white walls and stared at nothing. I could hear them talking downstairs. Selma crying about trying so hard with me. Candy saying she was scared of me now. My dad apologizing to them over and over. He never came upstairs. He never checked on me. He never asked my side of the story. That night, I sat on my floor and tried to fix the clasp on my mother's necklace with shaking hands. I couldn't get it to work. The chain kept slipping through my fingers and I kept crying, and eventually I just held it against my chest and rocked back and forth the way I did when I was a little kid. Then I heard my dad's voice drifting up from downstairs. Maybe she needs medication or something. This isn't normal. And Selma's response. I've been saying that for months. She's violent, Harold. She hit me. What happens next time? What if she hurts Candy? I waited for my father to defend me, to say anything about the necklace, about why I'd been upset, about any of it. He didn't. He just said, I'll talk to her tomorrow. But tomorrow came and he didn't talk to me. He never talked to me. He just avoided me the same way you'd avoid a problem you didn't know how to solve. That night, I gathered everything I had left of my mother. The photos I'd saved. Her favorite sweater that still smelled like her perfume. A letter she'd written me for my 10th birthday. And the necklace with the broken clasp. I put it all in a box and hid it somewhere outside the house. Somewhere they'd never find it. Then I went back to my empty room and made a decision. I was done crying. Done begging. Done fighting battles I couldn't win. If my father wanted to believe I was impossible to love, then fine. I'd prove him right. I'd become so independent that I didn't need any of them. And when I finally got out of this house, I was taking everything my mother left behind. Not because they'd give it to me willingly, because I'd find a way to take it myself. 3 years passed. I turned 17, and I was a different person. The girl who cried and screamed and fought was gone. In her place was someone quieter, colder, sharper. I worked 2 jobs after school and on weekends. I maintained a 4.0 GPA because good grades were my ticket out. I spoke to Selma and Candy only when absolutely necessary, and even then in as few words as possible. I stopped asking my dad for anything because I already knew the answer would be no. Selma noticed the change and it made her nervous. She preferred the old Bianca, the one who fought back and made scenes and gave her ammunition. This new version who just watched and waited and needed nothing was harder to deal with. She couldn't play victim if I wasn't attacking. She couldn't call me troubled if I wasn't causing trouble. So she tried to provoke me. Little comments here and there designed to get a reaction. We're taking a family trip to Florida, but I figured you'd rather stay home and work. I saw your mother's garden is getting overgrown. We should probably just tear it out. I didn't take the bait. I just nodded or said okay or that's nice and walked away. It drove her crazy. Meanwhile, Candy had become exactly what 3 years of coddling would create. Completely helpless. She was 17 years old and couldn't do her own laundry. Couldn't cook a basic meal. Couldn't hold a job for more than 2 months because everything was too hard or too boring or too beneath her. She'd panic if she had to make a phone call to schedule her own appointment. She'd never solved a single problem in her life without Selma swooping in to fix it. I watched her struggle with basic tasks and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. This was what Selma's parenting had created. A daughter who couldn't survive without someone carrying her. Good luck with that. Senior year, I applied to colleges and got into every single one. Full scholarships to 3 of them based on my grades and the essays I'd written about overcoming adversity. Funny how trauma makes great college application material. One night, I sat my dad down after dinner. Selma was loading the dishwasher and Candy was on her phone in the living room, and I figured it was as good a time as any. Dad, I need to ask you about something. Mom's college fund, the one she set up before she died. What happened to it? I needed it if I wanted to survive in college. Working multiple jobs was doable in high school, but now I wouldn't be able to maintain that. Mom always said the college fund would allow me to focus on my studies, and that's exactly what I needed right now. I couldn't afford to fail when I had come so close to fully making it out. But then Dad's face went pale. I watched the color drain from his face and knew the answer before he said anything. He started stammering something about expenses and adjustments and family finances, and then Selma swooped in as if she'd been waiting for this moment. That money was rolled into household finances years ago. We're all one family here. We share resources. I looked at her, then at my dad. He couldn't meet my eyes. The college fund my mother had spent years building. The money she'd saved specifically for my education. Gone. Spent on Candy's dance lessons and vocal coaches and shopping sprees. Spent on vacations I wasn't invited on. Spent on a life I was never included in. The old me would have screamed. She would have thrown things and hit them, and would have given them exactly the reaction they expected. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I just nodded slowly. Yeah, I should have expected that. I turned to my dad and glared at him with cold, dark eyes. You've been a coward for 3 years. Aren't you sick of it yet? He flinched as if I'd hit him. Bianca, you let Selma spend my college fund on dance lessons and vacations while I worked 2 jobs just to have lunch money. You watched her take my room, my mother's things, everything that mattered to me, and you didn't say a word. Not once. You're pathetic. Selma stepped forward, eyes flashing. You don't get to speak to your father that way. After everything we've done for you. What have you done for me? I kept my voice calm, almost curious. You took my room, took my mother's things, took her money. Spent 3 years telling me I was too mature to need anything while you spoiled Candy into someone who can't function without you. What exactly should I be thanking you for? Selma's face twisted with rage. I could tell exactly what she was thinking. This wasn't supposed to happen. I was supposed to cry and yell and give her a reason to play victim. Instead, I was just stating facts. You're an ungrateful, spiteful... I'm honest. I stood up. You wanted me to be independent. Congratulations. I am. I walked out of the kitchen without slamming the door, and I definitely didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear Selma ranting to my dad about disrespect and consequences and doing something about me. I didn't care. They'd taken everything they could take. You want to know the worst part? It's not the room. It's not the necklace. It's not even the college fund. It's that my father watched all of it happen and convinced himself he was being a good dad. You've always been my strong girl. That's what he said. Like strength was something I chose and not something I was forced into because he refused to protect me. But here's the thing about being forced to be strong. You actually become strong. And here's what Selma doesn't know. My mother saw this coming. She knew exactly who my father was. She knew exactly what would happen after she died. And she made a plan. I'm 17. In 3 months, I turn 18. And everything is about to change. Let me tell you what happened when I visited my grandma. I didn't go back to my room after the college fund conversation. I grabbed my keys and walked out the front door without saying a word. I could hear Selma calling after me. Something about disrespect and consequences. But I was already in my car and pulling out of the driveway. I drove without thinking, my hands tight on the wheel, my mind blank after watching them strip away every piece of her for 4 years, and knowing I couldn't do anything about it. I ended up at my grandmother's house without consciously deciding to go there. My mom's mother. The one Selma had tried to cut off from our lives the moment she moved in. She's too involved, Selma used to say. She undermines our family dynamic. What she really meant was that Grandma saw right through her and wasn't afraid to say it. So Selma convinced my dad to limit contact. Holidays only. Then not even that. But I'd been visiting Grandma in secret for years. She was the only person left who remembered my mother the way I did. The only person who still said her name without flinching. Grandma opened the door before I even knocked. She took one look at my face and stepped aside to let me in. What happened? I sat down at her kitchen table, the same table where my mom used to do homework as a kid, and told her everything. Grandma listened without interrupting. When I finished, she shook her head slowly. That man. Your mother knew. She always knew. I looked at her. Knew what? She got up and walked to the cabinet above her refrigerator. She pulled down a folder I'd never seen before, thick with papers, and set it on the table between us. Your mother wasn't stupid, Bianca. She knew exactly who your father was. She knew he was weak. She knew he'd remarry fast after she was gone. And she knew whoever came next would try to take everything she'd built. She sat down across from me. So she made a plan. I stared at the folder. What kind of plan? She opened it and spread the papers out. Deeds, bank statements, legal documents with my mother's signature at the bottom. The college fund was joint. Your mother and Harold managed it together. After she died, he had full access. What he did wasn't illegal. It was just... She paused, searching for the word. Cowardly. That money is gone. There's no getting it back. I felt nauseous. I'd expected that, but hearing it confirmed still hurt. But, Grandma continued, your mother knew something like this might happen, so she protected what she could. She pulled out a document and slid it toward me. The house, Bianca. She put it in your name before she died. I looked at the paper. Looked at my name typed in official font next to words like sole owner and transfer of deed. Looked back at Grandma. What? The house is yours. Has been since your mother passed. Your father has been living there this whole time, either thinking it belongs to him or knowing it doesn't, and hoping you'd never find out. Either way, he has no claim. When you turn 18, you have full legal control. You can let him stay. You can charge rent. You can sell it. You can kick him out. It's yours. I couldn't breathe. The house. My mother's house. The walls I grew up in. The rooms they took from me. The space Selma had been redecorating and claiming as her own for 4 years. It was mine. It had always been mine. There's more, Grandma said. She pulled out another set of papers. Bank statements. An account I'd never seen before. Your mother set up a separate account in your name only. Money your father couldn't touch. It's been sitting there for 4 years, untouched, waiting for you. I looked at the balance. $62,000. Not a fortune, but enough. Enough to start a life without needing anything from them. They stole what they could access, she said quietly. They've been living in what they couldn't steal. And they never knew about what your mother actually protected. I sat there staring at those numbers, those documents, my mother's handwriting on forms she'd filled out years ago, knowing exactly what would happen after she was gone. She saw it coming. All of it. She knew my dad would fail me. Knew someone like Selma would swoop in. Knew I'd need a way out. And she gave me one. Grandma reached across the table and took my hand. Do you understand what this means? I nodded slowly. In 3 months, when I turn 18, I own the house they've been treating like theirs. I own the walls Candy's dance trophies hang on. I own the rooms they moved me out of. Everything Selma has been claiming belongs to her actually belongs to me. What are you going to do? She asked. I thought about the last 4 years. The family meeting where Selma told me I was on my own. The room they took. The necklace they gave away. The college fund they spent. My dad telling me I was impossible to love. All of it. Every moment. Every betrayal. Every time I was told to be strong because they didn't want to take care of me. I looked at my grandmother. I'm going to take back everything they think is theirs. I drove home that night with the folder hidden in my trunk. Walked into the house like nothing had happened. Selma was in the kitchen cleaning up from dinner, shooting me a look as I passed. Nice of you to come back. We need to talk. About your behavior earlier. I didn't stop walking. I'm tired. We can talk tomorrow. Excuse me? You don't get to just walk away from... Good night, Selma. I went upstairs and closed my door and sat on my bed with my heart pounding. 3 months. I just had to survive 3 months. I could do that. I'd been surviving this house for 4 years. 3 more months was nothing. A few hours later, there was a knock on my door. My dad's voice hesitant. Bianca? Can we talk? I opened the door and leaned against the frame. I refused to let him in. What? He looked uncomfortable. Guilty. I was glad. I know you're upset about the college fund. I wanted to explain. There's nothing to explain. You spent it. It's gone. I already figured out how to pay for college myself. He blinked. You did? Scholarships. I got a full ride to 3 different schools. I don't need your money. I watched the relief wash over his face and felt sick. He wasn't relieved that I'd found a solution. He was relieved that he didn't have to feel guilty anymore, that I'd let him off the hook. That's wonderful, honey. I knew you'd figure it out. You've always been so strong, independent, capable. I know. You've told me. I started to close the door. He put his hand out to stop it. Bianca, I know things have been hard. I know the transition hasn't been easy, but I'm trying. We're all trying. Can't you meet us halfway? I looked at him. This man who used to be my father, who used to read me bedtime stories and protect me from the monsters under my bed. But now he had failed to protect me from the monster sleeping on his bed. You told me I was impossible to love, I said. 3 years ago in the kitchen after the necklace. You told me I made it impossible to love me. Do you remember that? He went pale. I was upset. I didn't mean... You meant it. And you know what? You were right. I am impossible to love. For you. Because loving me would require you to stand up to Selma, and you're not capable of that. So I stopped needing your love. I stopped needing anything from you. That's what you wanted, right? That's what you've been telling me since the day she moved in. Figure it out yourself, Bianca. Be strong, Bianca. You don't need us, Bianca. I tilted my head. Well, congratulations. I don't. I closed the door in his face, heard him stand there for a long moment before his footsteps retreated down the hall. Then I sat on my bed and smiled. 3 months. The next 3 months were a performance. I went to school. I worked my jobs. I kept my head down and my mouth shut. I didn't fight with Selma anymore. Didn't react when she made her little comments. Didn't flinch when my dad took her side. I just waited. Counted the days on a calendar I kept hidden in my closet, crossing off each one with a red pen like a prisoner marking time until release. Candy noticed the change too, and she didn't like it. The old Bianca was predictable, easy to provoke, fun to torture. This new version who barely acknowledged her existence was unsettling, so she escalated. She started with small things like using my shampoo until the bottle was empty and leaving it in the shower for me to find. Eating food I'd bought with my own money and shrugging when I mentioned it. I didn't see your name on it. Unplugging my phone charger at night so I'd wake up with a dead battery. Petty stuff. Annoying, but manageable. I didn't react. Just bought a lock for my door and kept my important things hidden. Then she got bolder. I came home from school to find my work uniform had coffee spilled all over it. Oops, Candy said from the couch, not even looking up from her phone. Accident. I had to wear a stained shirt to my shift because I didn't have time to wash it. My manager gave me a warning. I still didn't react. Just noted it. Filed it away. Added it to the list of things I'd remember when the time came. One morning I opened the fridge to grab the lunch I'd meal prepped the night before and found an empty container. I walked into the living room where Candy was sprawled on the couch scrolling through Instagram. You ate my food? She didn't look up. There was nothing else. There's an entire fridge full of food your mom bought. I didn't want that stuff. I stared at her. 17 years old. Never worked for anything in her life. Never been told no. Never had to solve a single problem without her mother swooping in to fix it. And here she was, eating food I'd paid for with money I'd earned at jobs I worked while she sat on her ass and scrolled through pictures of influencers. Something slipped out. Not anger, just an observation. You've never bought groceries in your life. Never cooked a meal. Never held a job for more than 2 months. What exactly are you going to do when you can't just take things that other people made? Candy's head snapped up. Excuse me? It's a genuine question. Your mom won't be around forever. What's your plan? Just find another person to leech off of? Her face twisted. You're just jealous because my mom actually takes care of me. Meanwhile, your mom died just to get away from you. I could have left a hole in the fridge from the amount of anger I felt when she said that, but I contained myself and hit her back with the honest truth. Takes care of you? Candy, she's crippled you. You're 17 and you can't do laundry, can't cook, can't hold a job, can't make a phone call without having a panic attack. You've never solved a single problem without running to mommy. That's not love. That's neglect with better packaging. Candy was on her feet now. Shut up. What happens when there's no one left to mooch off of? When there's no one to clean up your messes? You're completely useless without her and you don't even see it. I said shut up. Make me. She stormed off to find Selma. I could hear them in the kitchen, Candy's whiny voice, Selma's sharp responses. I didn't care. Let them talk. In a few months, they were going to have much bigger problems than my opinions. The final month before my birthday, Candy got desperate. She'd turn off the hot water while I was in the shower, throw away my mail and claim it was an accident. Tell Selma I'd called her a bad mother, which I hadn't, but it wasn't a lie either. Selma believed Candy. Selma always believed Candy. One night I was walking to my room and Candy stepped into the hallway to block my path with her arms crossed and her usual smug smile. Say you're sorry for what you said about me. I stopped. No. Then you're not getting past. I tilted my head and studied her. Really looked at her. This girl who'd spent 4 years making my life miserable because she could. Because her mother encouraged it. Because my father allowed it. She thought she had power over me. She had no idea. You know what I've realized about you, Candy? You've spent 4 years trying to make me miserable. And it worked sometimes. I'll give you that. But at the end of all of it, I have a job. I have savings. I have a plan. I have a future. What do you have? Her jaw tightened. I have a family that actually loves me. You have a mother who did everything for you so you'd never learn to do anything for yourself. The second she can't carry you anymore, you're going to collapse. And I'm going to be long gone, living my life, not thinking about you at all. I stepped closer to her. Now move. She didn't move, just stood there glaring at me with her arms still crossed. I waited. Then I said, 3 more months and I'm gone forever. You won't have anyone to torture anymore. What are you going to do then? Develop a personality? Something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe. The realization that her favorite target was about to disappear, and she had nothing else going on in her life. She stepped aside. I walked past her to my room and closed the door. Then I sat on my bed and smiled. 2 weeks later, I turned 18. There was no party, no cake, no acknowledgement from anyone in the house that it was my birthday. I woke up, went to school, came home. My dad was in his office. Selma was watching TV. Candy was at a friend's house. None of them said a word. I grabbed my bag and my keys. Going out for dinner with Grandma, I told my dad as I passed his office. He nodded without looking up. Have fun. He didn't remember what day it was. The year before Mom died, he threw me a surprise party. He invited all my friends and got me a cake shaped like a soccer ball. He told me I was his favorite person in the whole world. Now he couldn't even remember the date. It didn't hurt anymore. I was past hurting. I was just ready. I wasn't going to dinner, though. I was going to a lawyer's office. My lawyer, Lydia, spread documents out on her desk and walked me through everything. The house was mine. Current market value was approximately $450,000. My father had been living there for 4 years without any legal ownership. The separate account my mother set up contained $62,000, all mine, accessible immediately now that I was 18. What are your options? Lydia asked. You can let them stay, you can charge rent, you can sell the property. Or you can evict them. It's your house, your decision. I didn't hesitate. I want them out. Lydia nodded and made a note. I'll draft a formal notice to vacate. Once served, they'll have 30 days to leave the property. You can mail it, use a process server, or deliver it yourself. I thought about it. Thought about Selma's face when she realized what was happening. Thought about my dad's guilt. Thought about Candy's confusion. I wanted to see all of it. I'll deliver it myself. 3 days later. I waited until everyone was home. It was a normal evening. Selma was in the kitchen making dinner. Candy was on the couch with her phone. My dad was in his office pretending to work. The house smelled like garlic and onions. The TV was playing some reality show Candy liked. Everything was normal. No one knew that everything was about to change. I need everyone in the living room. Now. Selma's frown deepened. Excuse me? Family meeting. I sat down in the armchair. Selma followed me, irritated, and called for my dad. He came out of his office looking confused. Candy didn't move from the couch, but she put her phone down, curious. They gathered around me the same way they had 4 years ago when Selma called her first family meeting. When she'd told me I was on my own. When she'd set the rules that would define the next 4 years of my life. Now it was my turn. "What's this about?" my dad asked. "The house," I said. Selma rolled her eyes. "What about the house?" I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope, set it on the coffee table between us. "This is a formal notice to vacate. You have 30 days to leave." Silence. Complete silence. I watched their faces cycle through confusion, disbelief, and something else. Something that looked like the beginning of fear. My dad laughed nervously. "What are you talking about?" I looked at him, held his gaze. "The house. This house. It's mine. Mom left it to me before she died. It's been in my name for 4 years. You've been living in my house this whole time." I paused. "That ends now." Selma's face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, anger, fear, and then something hard and cold. "That's ridiculous. Harold, tell her that's ridiculous." But Dad wasn't saying anything. He'd gone pale, white as a sheet. He was staring at me with his mouth slightly open, and I knew. I'd always suspected, but now I knew for sure. "You knew," I said to him. "Didn't you, Dad?" "You knew this whole time." He couldn't meet my eyes, couldn't look at me, couldn't look at Selma, just sat there frozen like a kid caught stealing. Selma's head snapped toward him. "Harold, what is she talking about?" He didn't answer. The room went very still. I leaned back in the armchair, crossed my legs, and let them sit in the silence for a moment. Then I smiled. "So, let's talk about what happens next." Selma recovered first. She always did. "This is insane. You can't just forge some documents and pretend you own a house. Harold, tell her. Tell her this is ridiculous." But Dad still wasn't talking. He was staring at the envelope on the coffee table like it was a bomb about to go off. Selma's voice went sharp. "Harold, say something." He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. I watched Selma's face as the realization hit her. 4 years of marriage. 4 years of redecorating this house, hosting dinner parties, calling it her home, building a life in these walls. All of it in a house her husband knew wasn't theirs. She'd been stealing from me for 4 years, but she'd also been played by the man sitting next to her who was too much of a coward to tell her the truth. "You knew," she said to him. Her voice was quiet now, dangerous. "This whole time, you knew." "It was complicated," he managed. "Complicated? Complicated?" She was on her feet now. "You let me move my daughter into this house. You let me spend money on renovations. You let me plan a future here. And you knew it wasn't even yours?" I thought maybe she'd never find out. I thought maybe when she turned 18, she'd just let us stay. "You thought?" Selma's voice cracked. "You gambled our entire life on your daughter being too stupid to figure out the truth?" I almost laughed, but I kept my face neutral. Let them tear into each other. It was more satisfying than anything I could have said. Candy was looking between everyone, completely lost. "Wait, can someone please explain what's happening? What do you mean the house is hers? That doesn't make any sense." "It makes perfect sense," I said. Mom knew exactly who Dad was. She knew he'd remarry fast, and whoever came next would try to take everything she built. So she protected what she could. The house went into my name before she died. Your mom has been redecorating my property for 4 years. Candy's face went pale. But where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem. You can't just kick us out. This is our home. No, it's my home. You've been guests. Very rude, very ungrateful guests who ate my food and stole my room and made my life miserable for 4 years. And now your invitation has been revoked. Candy turned to my dad. "Dad, do something. You can't let her do this." He flinched at the word dad coming from her mouth. He looked at me, then at Selma before landing on the floor. I don't know what to do." "Of course you don't," Selma spat. "You never know what to do. You just sit there and let everyone else clean up your messes. That's all you've ever done." Their marriage was cracking right in front of me. Good. Let it crack. Let it shatter into a million pieces. I stood up. "You have 30 days. I suggest you start packing." I walked upstairs to my room and closed the door. Behind me, I could hear Selma screaming at my dad, Candy crying, the whole house falling apart. I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling and smiled. The next 2 weeks were entertaining. Selma cycled through every tactic she had, starting with manipulation. She caught me in the kitchen the morning after the family meeting. Her whole demeanor transformed. Soft, reasonable, gentle. "Bianca, I know we've had our differences. I know things haven't always been easy between us. But we're family. Surely we can work something out. I poured myself a glass of water. We're not family. We never were. I've tried so hard with you. I really have. Maybe I made mistakes, but my heart was in the right place. Can't you see that? I looked at her, studied her face, the carefully constructed expression of concern, the tears forming in her eyes on command. She was good. I'd give her that. What exactly did you try, Selma? Taking my room? Giving away my mother's jewelry? Spending my college fund on dance lessons for your daughter? Which part of that was your heart being in the right place? Her mask slipped for just a second, frustration flickering behind her eyes. Then it was back. The wounded stepmother routine. I was trying to build a family. I was trying to help you move on from your grief. Everything I did was for this family. You don't have a family here anymore. You have 30 days. 29 now, actually. I walked past her and went to school. She tried the legal route next. Came home a few days later with a folder full of papers and a new attitude. Confident. Smug. The old Selma I knew and hated. I spoke to a lawyer today. We're contesting the deed. There are ways to challenge these things. Undue influence, mental incapacity, improper execution. You'll be hearing from our attorney. I didn't react. Good luck with that. You think you're so smart. You think you've won. But you're 18 years old, and you have no idea how the real world works. This isn't over. I shrugged and went to my room. 3 days later, I heard her on the phone in the kitchen, her voice tight and strained. What do you mean there's nothing you can do? She was 14 when the transfer happened. There has to be something. I don't care what the documents say. Find a way to challenge them. What do you mean it's airtight? She hung up and threw her phone across the counter. The lawyer had reviewed everything. My mother used one of the best estate attorneys in the state. Every document was perfect. Every signature verified. Every legal requirement met. There was nothing to contest. Selma fired that lawyer and found another one. A fighter someone had recommended. She paid him a retainer with money they didn't really have and waited for good news. The good news never came. Same answer. The deed was valid. The transfer was legal. There was nothing to challenge. I heard her screaming at him over the phone. Heard her crying in the master bedroom afterward. I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. When the legal tactics failed, Selma went external. If she couldn't beat me in court, she'd beat me in the court of public opinion. She started calling my dad's family, his sister, his brother, his cousins, everyone she could think of. I know exactly what she told them because they started calling me. My dad's sister first. Honey, I heard what's happening. This isn't right. You can't throw your own father out on the street, after everything he's done for you. I almost laughed. What has he done for me? Name one thing. He raised you. He provided for you. He let his wife take my room, give away my mother's things, and spend my college fund. He told me I was impossible to love. He watched Selma treat me like garbage for 4 years and never said a word. Is that what you mean by providing for me? Silence on the other end. I. I didn't know about any of that. No one asked. Everyone just assumed Selma's version was true. The patient stepmother, the troubled stepdaughter. But here's the reality. They stole everything they could get their hands on, and now they're facing consequences. That's it. That's the whole story. More calls came over the next few days, but the narrative was shifting. Family members who'd initially sided with Selma were hearing my side now. The details she'd conveniently left out. 4 years of being told I was too mature to need anything while Candy got everything handed to her. My dad's aunt called, the one who'd been close with my mom. She said she always wondered what happened to the house. Said she was proud of me for standing up for myself. Said my mother would be proud too. I cried after that call. But only in my room. Never where anyone in the house could see. By week 2, Selma's support network had collapsed. People stopped returning her calls. Her campaign to turn family against me had backfired completely. Now everyone knew the truth. Now everyone knew who she really was. She was more isolated than ever. And she was getting desperate. She turned to my dad, pushed him to talk to me, guilt-tripped him, manipulated him, told him he was the only one who could fix this. She's your daughter. She has to listen to you. Use your relationship. Make her understand. As if there was any relationship left to use. He knocked on my door one night, hesitant, nervous. The same way he'd been knocking for 4 years whenever he wanted something from me. I opened it but didn't invite him in like usual. What? Can we talk? Please? I leaned against the doorframe. Waited. He took a deep breath. I know I haven't been perfect. I know I've made mistakes. But Bianca, you have to understand. Selma doesn't deserve to be homeless. Candy didn't do anything wrong. They're innocent in all of this. I stared at him. Candy ate my food, destroyed my clothes, and made my life miserable for 4 years because she thought it was funny. She told me my mother died just to get away from me. Selma spent every dollar she could get her hands on and called it family finances. They're not innocent. They're just facing consequences for the first time in their lives. But where will they go? They don't have anywhere. That's not my problem. It was never my problem. They should have thought about that before they spent 4 years treating me like I didn't exist. He shifted his weight and tried a different approach. Your mother wouldn't want this. She wouldn't want you to be cruel. Wrong move. Very wrong move. Don't you dare tell me what my mother would want. You lost that right when you let Selma give away her necklace, when you stood there and told me she'd be ashamed of me for being upset about it. I stepped closer to him. You know what I think? I think Mom saw exactly who you were. I think she knew you'd fail me the second she was gone. That's why she put the house in my name. She was protecting me from you. His face crumpled. That's not fair. None of this is fair. But you're the one who made it this way. Not me. You had 4 years to be my father. 4 years to choose me even once. You didn't. And now you get to live with that choice. I closed the door. That night I heard him and Selma fighting. Really fighting. Screaming at each other in the master bedroom. Her calling him weak and useless and pathetic. Him yelling that none of this would have happened if she hadn't pushed so hard. If she'd just treated me fairly. If she'd just been a decent person. It was too little too late. But it was still satisfying to hear. By the end of the week, he was sleeping in his office. Week 3. Candy finally broke. She'd been holding it together through sheer denial, convinced that somehow this would all work out. That her mother would fix it. That my dad would fix it. That someone would swoop in and save them the way someone always did. But no one was coming. And it was starting to sink in. I found her in her room surrounded by clothes and boxes, completely overwhelmed. She wasn't packing. She was just standing there. Frozen. I don't know what to take, she said when she saw me in the doorway. Her voice was small, defeated. I don't know what to do. When we moved here, Mom handled everything. I just showed up with my suitcase and my room was already set up. I've never had to actually do any of this myself. You put things in boxes, you load the boxes in a car, you drive to a new place. It's not complicated. But where are we even going? We can't afford anything. I shrugged. Sounds like a you problem. This is your fault. You're ruining our lives. I'm taking back what's mine. There's a difference. She started crying. Ugly, heaving sobs. I don't know how to do anything. I don't know how to get a job or find an apartment or pay bills or any of it. Mom always handled everything. I watched her fall apart and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. This was exactly what I'd predicted. Exactly what I'd warned her about. The second her mother couldn't carry her anymore, she'd collapse. And here she was, collapsing. A few days later, Candy knocked softly on my door. When I opened the door, her face was puffy from crying, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Please, she said. Please, Bianca. I know we haven't been. I know I wasn't always nice to you. But I don't have anywhere to go. My mom doesn't have anywhere to go. Can't you just give us more time? Just a few more weeks to figure things out? Remember when I told you that you'd collapse the second your mom couldn't carry you anymore? I said. This is that moment. Figure it out. I started to close the door. She grabbed it. Please, I'm begging you. I know I was horrible. I know I was awful to you. But I was just a kid. I didn't know any better. You were the same age as me. You knew exactly what you were doing. You just didn't think there would ever be consequences. I pulled the door from her grip. Welcome to consequences. I closed it and locked it. She sobbed out in the hallway, but I didn't open my door again. Day 28 came and Selma still hadn't packed. She'd spent the last 4 weeks cycling through denial and rage and manipulation, convinced that somehow she'd find a way out of this, that somehow she'd win. She was wrong, but she wasn't ready to admit it yet. She planted herself in the living room that morning and announced that she wasn't leaving. This is my home. I've lived here for 4 years. I've put my heart and soul into this place. You'll have to drag me out. That reminded me of me 4 years ago begging them to not take my room away. But I was forced out regardless. And now I had the luxury of doing the same thing to her. I said okay, and walked away. Then I called Lydia from my room and confirmed everything was in order. The sheriff had been notified. If they weren't out by 5 p.m. on day 30, law enforcement would escort them out. 2 more days. I could wait 2 more days. Day 30. I woke up early. I showered, got dressed, and ate breakfast in the kitchen while Selma glared at me from the living room. She still hadn't packed anything. Candy had managed to get some boxes together, but most of her stuff was still scattered around the house. My dad had 1 suitcase by the door. Just 1. He knew it was over. Had known for days. He was just waiting for it to end. At noon, a car pulled into the driveway. It was Sheriff's deputy. I met him at the door, showed him the paperwork, and walked him through everything. He nodded and stepped inside. Selma saw the uniform and her face went white. This is private property. You can't just walk in here. Ma'am, I'm here to enforce a lawful eviction notice. You have until 5 p.m. today to vacate the premises. If you're not gone by then, I'm authorized to remove you. Selma's voice went shrill. I'll call my lawyer. This is illegal. You can't do this. That's your right, ma'am. But the eviction stands. He stepped back outside to wait, giving them the afternoon to get their things together. The next 5 hours were chaos. Selma screaming at my dad to do something. Candy crying while trying to shove clothes into garbage bags because she didn't have enough boxes. My dad silently loading what he could into their car. It was too small for everything. They had to make choices. What to take. What to leave behind. They argued about it constantly. Whose fault this was. Where they were even going to go. A motel, probably. Until they figured something out. They didn't have a plan. They'd never thought they'd need one. 4:45 p.m. The deputy knocked on the door again. 15 minutes, folks. Selma was standing in the foyer surrounded by boxes she hadn't loaded. Her hair was wild. Her makeup was smeared. She looked nothing like the put-together woman who'd walked into this house 4 years ago with her perfect smile and her master plan. She turned to me. You're going to regret this. You're going to end up alone. No one is going to love someone this cold. Maybe, I said. But at least I'll be alone in my own house. 5 p.m. The deputy came back. Selma still hadn't moved. He walked in, polite but firm. Ma'am, it's time to go. I'm not leaving. This is my home. I have rights. Ma'am, the eviction has been legally processed. You need to vacate the premises now. If you refuse, I'll have to remove you. Selma looked around wildly. At my dad, who was already walking out the door with his suitcase. At Candy, who was crying by the car. At me, standing in the living room watching it all happen. Harold! Harold! Do something! But Dad was done. He put his suitcase in the trunk and got in the car without looking back. Selma had no one left. The deputy stepped forward and took her arm. Not roughly, but firmly. Ma'am. Let's go. She went, but not quietly. She yelled about lawyers the whole way out the door, about how this wasn't over, about how I'd pay for this. The deputy walked her to the car and waited while she got in. Candy was already in the back seat, face pressed against the window, mascara running down her cheeks. My dad was in the driver's seat staring straight ahead. Then he got out and walked back toward the house. The deputy tensed, but my dad held up his hands. I just want to say goodbye. He walked up to me and stood there in the doorway looking older than I'd ever seen him. He was broken and lost. Bianca. He trailed off. He didn't know what to say, but I waited. I gave him one last chance to be my father, to apologize, to acknowledge what he'd done, to say something, anything, that might matter. And then it came. I'm sorry, he finally said. For all of it. I'm sorry. Looking at him, I felt nothing. You should be, I said. Goodbye, Dad. He stood there for a moment longer. Then he nodded, turned around, and walked to the car. Then they drove away. The house was all mine now. For the first time in 4 years, I felt like I was home.